Everything is fueled from me wanting to be a better person on earth.
It's time to do your part.
Welcome back, everybody, to Do Your Part. You know who I am. I am your host, Brian Gallo, and today another unique, interesting perspective and voice. We are lucky enough to talk to Stan Henry. He's got a serious, what do you want to call it, resume or just a long list of things that you've conquered in your career. How you doing?
Doing well. Haven't conquered. I've had the pleasure of having some diversity in my career. So.
I like to, well, as we go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have 6 titles that you've earned in just 33 years. I would imagine to get to each level, there's, maybe conquer is the wrong word. Let me jump ahead of you though. Why are you here today? I always ask my guests.
Just to give some insight on maybe some different perspectives on how the world is being handled today. And, I always want to make sure that we leave for those that are going to take over from where we've been, hopefully some wisdom to where they can make it a better place for tomorrow.
Have you ever seen so many people who are not with that same ideology, who are not looking to leave things easier for the next generation? Or leave wisdom, right? Because there's a lot of groups and people and thought processes that don't align with that.
I think what comes to play a lot is individual agendas or agendas by certain groups of people that want to push that agenda versus how do we make things better.
And we talked about this before as far as individual groups and then just kind of a universal thought. As far as individual groups, I mean, it's always been that way, but is it more now than it's ever been?
Well, I think what has made it more prevalent is the media is, today you get everything instantly on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, the TV. It's all instant, and so where in the past, something would happen and it would take 24 hours or longer for the paper to or the newscast to get it, play it, and then people would be able to respond to it. So the instantness of things, and which has led to instant gratification. Yeah. Which has led
to a lot of instance.
Yeah, to you get a text message and you feel compelled to instantly drop whatever you're doing and respond back to that person.
Yeah, it's an interesting world we live in.
We used to have missed phone call, pieces of paper that you would that you might get 2 days from now. Today, it's like I said, it's if somebody doesn't, if you don't respond instantly, then they get upset with you.
They're crushed. I remember as a kid losing notes. Like somebody called for my mom, and I would make the note. Janice called at 1:30, and I'd lose it, and then 3 days later, I'd get my ass chewed out. And definitely times have changed, and I think you're right. And I think that a lot of people. I met a woman who she unplugs every Sunday. I don't know if I could do that, but God bless her for doing that because it's what we're feeding ourselves. Now let me do this because I know who you are, but a lot of the listeners don't. So let's talk a bit about your background as far as professionally, what you've done for work.
Okay. So I was a police officer, and I say that as that's a general term. I held many different positions within a police department for 33 years. Started out obviously as a police officer working patrol and working the streets, and that was in Orange County. I worked for 2 agencies in Orange County as a patrol officer and detective, and then eventually as a sergeant in patrol, with a sergeant as a shift supervisor. And then had the privilege of being asked to come to Cathedral City when it was creating its new police department. The city of Cathedral City incorporated in 1982.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they the citizens there decided they wanted to have their own city. I mean, it was a geographical location known as Cathedral City. Like Thousand Palms is not a city, but everybody knows Thousand Palms. They almost consider it a city. Bermuda Dunes is not a city, but people kind of seem like it is.
What do they call it? Unincorporated?
It's an unincorporated area.
Yeah.
And Cathedral City was that up until 1982. They actually had a vote of the residents at that time and decided that they wanted to become a city. And so they did that. And then from 82 to 84, they decided they didn't want to have a contract police department. They wanted to have their own police department. And so, again, they went out to the voters and voted and had decided to have their own police department. So the chief that I was working for at the time in Orange County had heard about Cathedral City, had heard about that, and applied to be the chief of police. And actually he got the privilege of being accepted and appointed chief of police. And so he needed to have people to help him start a police department.
And you were what the first step?
I was a sergeant working for him in patrol, and had been working there about 7 years. And he had called me in his office and said, "Hey, I'm starting to, I'm going to go to Cathedral City and start a brand new police department. Do you want to come help me?" And my first thought was, where's Cathedral City?
Yeah, totally. I know there are a lot of churches there.
Which is everybody's first thing, I think. You tell them, and he goes, next to Palm Springs, which is, again, everybody. Actually, except for the new generation now, you wouldn't say next to Palm Springs, you'd say Coachella.
Totally.
Right. Because that's what they recognize. And
thanks
stuff.
to the festival.
Yeah, thanks to the festival. So he said next to Palm Springs, and I said, "Oh, Palm Springs, college, spring break. Yeah, I'll go."
Oh God, boobs and beers.
No. But I'd actually come out here with my family vacationing at times and stuff when in the 70s and that. So it was an opportunity. I had originally, when I said yes, it was to figured it looked good on a resume. Helping start a brand new police department. I'd grown up by the beach and all that, so the goal was to get back to the beach.
Where'd you grow up?
Orange County in Los Alamitos.
Okay, because we're going to get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
All right, go on.
Long Beach. I all kind of went through all those different areas and stuff. And like I said, I was a beach bum, never owned a pair of shoes and all that stuff.
I can't picture you that way, but go ahead.
Yeah, I actually had long hair.
Can't picture that either.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Neither can my kids.
There's pictures to prove it, though. Listeners, viewers, if you're lucky, we'll track down a picture for you.
Yeah. And then so I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it." So came out here in March of 1984. There was the chief, myself, and one other guy. He and I were sergeants together, and the chief asked him if he wanted to do the same thing. So the three of us came out here. We sat at a desk similar to this in a room that had nothing at the original City Hall, Cathedral City, and said, "How do we start a police department?"
Really?
Yeah, that was kind of, we had a...
Talk about a grassroots experience.
It was a great experience.
Wow.
We had a...
this makes more sense as to where I know you to be when I met you as mayor. Yeah. This is all the building blocks. Go on.
So we sat, like I said, sat in a room. We had a whiteboard and just started writing down on the board everything that we needed to do and how we were going to delegate the different responsibilities between the three of us. Obviously, the chief of police handled all the political things and handled going out and meeting people in the public and all that kind of stuff, and he did that. And then the other gentleman that came out with me or with us was more astute into policies and procedures and kind of all of those type of things, and really good at that stuff. And so he started handling all the logistics for setting everything up, getting licenses for radios, getting all, like I said, writing policies and procedures, doing all that. I actually
let me interrupt you real quick. I would have assumed that there would have been some sort of kit that you would have been handed over from the government or from the state of some sort of, here's how all of the cities operate and this is what you need to do.
Nope.
Nothing like that.
No, we actually plagiarized a whole lot of stuff.
Wow. You're not going to get in trouble by admitting that now, right?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we took, we took obviously the policies and procedures what we had the department we were at.
In Orange County,
in
right?
Orange County. We actually got one from Palm Springs.
Okay.
Palm Springs is very helpful in giving us some information. The state had some stuff. We kind of took those things. And,
Smart, because that's all you could do.
Post, which is Police Officer Standard and Training, had some things that they that needed, and we looked at the government code and California government code.
And we're going to be all over the place with this conversation, so I ask you to be patient with me right now. Let me ask you this. Looking at you working off this whiteboard and kind of creating your own police department, and then looking at today, would there be different changes if you had this opportunity today? Or would it be pretty much the same?
Probably the process would probably be pretty much the same. I mean, you gotta sit there, and there's a process you kind of gotta go through. I'm getting to the point is I had the best job. They said, okay, we need you to handle overseeing the building of the department. They basically said, here's I used the term $1 million, and I don't know if it was actually $1 million or something, but we need radios, we need cars, we need guns, we need badges, we need, all the stuff.
You got to go shopping.
I got to go shopping. Like I said, it was like putting a kid in a candy store, man. So I had to deal with all of that type of stuff, all the logistics of getting the radios, making sure the police department construction was being done. We took over we were in an industrial area on Perez Road. There was the shell there. So one night, Bob and I, who's the other guy that came out with me, we sat down over chips and beer and on a napkin, drew out kind of a design of what we wanted the police department to look like. Front lobby area. We knew we needed detectives. We knew we needed these different things, locker rooms, jail. So we did that. So then I said, and then I actually drove a flatbed pickup truck to Ventura. The county of Ventura had built a new jail, and they were getting ready to destroy their old jail. And the chief that I worked for, he had actually his career had started in Ventura, so he had some contacts there. And he called up a friend of his, and so I had talked to our contractor here and said, "Here's what do we need for jail bars?" And so he gave me some dimensions. I drove a flatbed truck up to Ventura, met a welder up there. We went in to the jail that was vacated and said, okay, we need bars, we need doors, we need this, we need that. We cut them all out, loaded them on the flatbed pickup truck, and drove them back.
This was a very big flatbed, I imagine. This is all still part of the shopping experience.
It was all part of the shopping experience.
Yeah. What led you to the police department in the first place? As a kid, were you like, I want to be a cop when I grow up?
Well, yeah. I was born in Bakersfield, California. And
then went to the beach.
And then went to the beach.
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
My mom and dad got divorced when I was young, and my dad still lived in Bakersfield. And I would go visit on the weekends. I'd go visit on holidays, and I'd go visit, for a couple of months in the summertime. And when I was about 12 years old, I went to go visit for the summer. And my dad, who had always wanted to be a police officer, but because he got married young, had kids young and stuff, had a job working for the telephone company, and just kind of stability-wise had stayed with that. So he became a reserve deputy sheriff for Kern County Sheriff's. Volunteer position, volunteered his time and that. And went to go visit, and he was all excited about, he was now being able to go out on patrol and all this stuff, and took me on a ride-along. And I went on a ride-along, and at 12 years old, I said, hey, you know what? This is what I want to do.
So you knew since 12 years old?
I was hooked on the adrenaline, man.
Wow. And seeing that's something that made your dad happy, probably.
Yeah, it did. It was. I mean, and there were some ups and downs through the process, but it was. Like I said, I teach now at the college, College of the Desert, and in the criminal justice program, and I tell kids there as they are going through trying to become police officers, some of them, and some other positions and stuff. But I told them, I said, hey, the hardest part for me was getting from 12 to 21, which is, again, a lot of the, I think, issues that the kids today are having to deal with. And I say that because it is the exposure to peer pressure, exposure to the different things out there that are available to you, drugs, alcohol, all this kind of stuff that's there. And how do you keep yourself in a position to where you have the ability to be hired? Because we have in the police department, there are some standards that have to be met. We don't want to hire thieves. We don't want to hire drug addicts.
Right.
We don't want to hire alcoholics. And
what I'm
stuff
hearing
like
is that from 12 to 21, you knowing where your focus lied and what you wanted to do with your life kept you on the straight and narrow.
It was a challenge to stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Yes, because you had all these other influences.
So you never inhaled. I'm just kidding. Sorry, squeezing some comedy there. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that because my kids bug me every day. Say, "Oh, you've never smoked." And I said, "No, I haven't." No, I can't. Don't believe you.
Wow.
Don't believe you.
You've never a cigarette, weed?
No.
Nothing?
I've smoked cigarettes. Yes.
And you smoke cigar. You still,
No, I don't smoke cigars anymore.
but you have smoked cigarettes.
I used to smoke cigarettes.
Julie's back there laughing. All right.
I used to smoke cigarettes, but I've never smoked marijuana.
The devil's lettuce.
Yeah.
The reefer madness.
Yeah.
All right, go on. Because
Which was all of those things.
I have to say, I had you here once before, and we're going to have you back again. And you're just such a wealth of knowledge, and you have such an interesting story. I keep interrupting you, but I'm just really glad you're here. So continue, and then segue into kind of what it was like growing up at the beach and these pressures, and how you talk about that.
Yeah, I was in. I think probably the thing that kept me the most out of trouble was probably sports. I was involved in sports, and growing up and everything, and that always helps keep you grounded a little bit, kept me focused.
Yeah.
It occupied the majority of the school year and a lot of the summers. But there's still like I said, we grew up a mile from the beach. I was a surfer kid. And
Was it diverse where you grew up?
not necessarily. No, it was middle class. Predominantly white. There were some. It wasn't probably not diverse. I mean, when you look at it today, it was a suburb. Orange County was probably in the 60s and 70s. You had the white flight out of L.A. to Orange County. Orange County was growing at the time and all that stuff. And
The white flight. I've never heard that.
you've never heard that term?
No, I'm writing it down. What is that?
That's
Is it meaning like, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's white people leaving the city to go to the
Leaving
suburbs.
to
White
go-
flight.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Self-explanatory. I've never heard that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was I said I necessarily was not involved in that, but I was too young.
Yeah.
But that I'm sure that's how a lot of the suburbs got established and stuff like that, as they left the inner cities and they left those things and went to the suburbs. And so, was it diverse? Probably not. I mean, did we had black kids, we had Hispanics, there were all of those things. Never really thought about it.
Yeah.
He was either a friend or he wasn't. Didn't matter what his race was or anything like that.
As you moved through the force, did you find that the force began to diversify a little bit?
Yeah, and again, I one of the classes I teach at College of the Desert or taught was multicultural issues and law enforcement.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, wow, I didn't know this. I knew you taught, but I don't remember you saying that. Go ahead.
So, in that class, actually, it's one of the I think it's one of the best classes because it gives the students, the kids that want to become police officers, want to get into law enforcement, and not just law enforcement, want to be attorneys, whatever it is that that they want to be, public defenders, whatever that. It gives them a little bit of an understanding of why we have some of the issues we have today with certain races, based off of history. I never had that, growing up. Now I did work in a city in Orange County that was predominantly Hispanic, and so there were some conflicts and things like that. But I kind of lost my thought.
That's okay, because I'm going to. Why do we? Let's talk about some of those issues that you're referring to, and A, how they came about, and B, are we seeing changes, right? Because I know like a lot of the argument is as far as like, let's use the hood for instance, right? As far as black demographic is concerned, a lot of people visibly say that this is kind of how things have gerrymandering or redlining. This is how things have always been set up to oppress black people. What do you see from your perspective? And only answer things that you feel comfortable with. But do you see that to be true?
You know,
It's a loaded question.
Yeah,
by the way.
It is very loaded. I think that that they're in law enforcement and in society. I think that we have opened our eyes to racial discrimination. And I'll give you a perfect example, which I never sat well with me, and I use this with my kids. And I say my kids, the kids in college and stuff. Like I said, it was I worked in a city that was, like I said, predominantly Hispanic, and we had strawberry fields and stuff that were around us. It was kind of an there were some agricultural areas and stuff. This is in the 70s when Orange County was still not populated like it is today.
Right.
Yeah, it was still developing. I mean, Disneyland, all the way around Disneyland was all strawberry fields, and stuff. So
Wow, that's a weird visual. Go
I
ahead.
know it is.
I think there's no Radisson.
Yeah. So I remember distinctly when we were slow, and especially on day shift, which I hated to work day shift and stuff. But when we were slow and I had to work day shift, the sergeant would say, "Go to the strawberry fields and get them. Go and arrest the undocumented workers for immigration violations." And to me, I'm like, why are we doing this? Why? But that was the mentality back then, in the 70s. It actually has been the mentality for not just the 70s, but for some time. It's like, why are we doing this? Why are we going and arresting a person that is working and making a living and not really being a criminal?
I'm actually feeding us because I eat those strawberries.
Yeah. I mean, it just,
And that boils down to just that individual being racist or prejudiced.
Well, but it was, and it could have been an individual thing, but I think it was more of a societal thing.
Gotcha.
That was how, things were done in those times. Today, we don't do things that way, and I say today, I mean, for you don't have it's not systemic in the organization. You may have individuals in an organization that may do something like that or may think like that.
And that resonates. That talks about good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Right.
But as an organization, I don't know, at least in California, of many organizations that are systemic like that as an organization. You may have individuals, you may have a group of individuals that are that way, which cause all of us issues. But it's not, it's not a, if a sergeant were today to say, hey, go out to the strawberry fields and arrest the undocumented, he'd be out of job.
Wow. This is good to hear because I know just a few years ago with ICE kind of running around.
Well, and it's, is it's ICE job to do that? It certainly probably is. That is their mission. That's their thing. That's not necessarily the mission of a local municipal police department.
I'm glad you actually, okay, so that's fair. It's like that is their job, therefore it's justified for them to take those actions. But in essence, it still seemed pretty alarming for all of us to visualize that, right?
It is, yeah.
Talk about, and again, I don't want to completely open you up here, and but talk about the good cop, bad cop. I know you're a good dude. You always have been. I know you've seen bad cops. How do you all handle that?
Well, and I'll tell you that the person that hates a bad cop more than anybody is a good cop.
It's just somebody like you.
It affects our credibility. It affects our
right, the big picture.
It affects our ability to be and the thing gets down to respect. Now, there may be out there somebody that says, I want to be a police officer because I want to abuse other people. There may be some of those, but being a chief of police for 15 years, hiring a lot of people, And one of the things as the chief, you delegate a lot of authority to staff to deal with things and do things. The things that I never delegated was one, hiring people. I felt that was my responsibility as the chief of police, head of the organization.
And that's just because you thought it was your job, not because you didn't trust that they would
No, it's
use
not that I
better
don't
judgment.
trust them. I mean, because you're trusting them to do the background and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I just felt it was, it was my full, I felt that I needed to be connected to the community to understand what the community wanted in their police department.
Yeah.
And I did that through, obviously, the city council, through community organizations, meetings, and all those things. To have that, pulse of your finger on the pulse of what the community wanted. And so I set the philosophy of what the police department was going to be like. And so I needed to hire people that had that same philosophy. If they didn't have that philosophy, then you know what, they weren't going to get hired. But I left hiring as 100% my responsibility. Promoting, obviously I wanted, if somebody was going to get promoted, they needed to again meet that philosophy. And then the last part was termination.
Which is not the fun part.
Which is not the fun part. I mean, and it's never fun. But my point was, I don't recall ever having or hiring a person that eventually I had to fire that were hired with, I think, the intentions of being a bad cop. Through the process, through the things that we are exposed to, sometimes plays into people's morality, plays into their values, plays into those things maybe changing.
Yeah.
And eventually they do something, and sometimes it's just a mistake. I think somebody, and I couldn't even tell you who it was over the years, but used to say, is it a mistake of the heart or a mistake of the mind? If it was something that that somebody made a mistake and it was legitimate mistake, should they be given a second chance? If possible, they could. If it's a mistake of the mind where they intentionally did something wrong, there's no use for them.
That's the issue. Talk about the vetting process and the hiring process, because I know we touched on that last time we spoke.
Yeah, and I said, and again, it gets back to the hardest part of becoming a police officer was getting from 12 to 21 with the influences and peer pressure and all that. The vetting process that we have is obviously there's a testing process. There's an education process and all that. So they've got to understand, and read, write, all of those things, make decisions. You want a person that it's really difficult in that you want a person that can make individual decisions, but you want a person that also, that when the chips are down, are going to follow direction.
With some compassion?
Well, sometimes you just got to follow directions.
Yeah.
That's where the quasi-military aspect of law enforcement comes to play. Is that when the sergeant tells you to do something, you got to go do it. You're not asking a question why. You got to assume that he knows best, and that he's telling you to do something for the right reason. It's the perfect example is. A sniper on a SWAT team, with an incident where you got a person that's probably armed and people are in danger, and somebody's going to give the order, to shoot that person. You're not questioning that order.
Yeah.
You're doing your job. On the other hand, you have that same person that may be in the field handling a situation and come across a person with a gun. Do you want them to shoot them on sight, or do you want them to go through a process,
a checklist in their head?
Checklist in their head, and sometimes that checklist is very quick. based off of what's going on. So
All right, so I was going to say no, but it sounds like yes, we do want somebody to be able to have a mental checklist.
Absolutely.
Just not a very long one.
well, no, absolutely. I mean, it's
I'm kind of half kidding.
it's circumstantial.
Yeah. No, I get it. And again, for somebody like me, I can't even fathom. I can't even begin to even understand how all of that works.
Yeah.
And nor do I want to. I couldn't do that job. That takes a serious kind of person to be able to do that.
It's all circumstantial. It's all, individualized. And I'll give you an example. When I was a young police officer, I responded to a call of a disturbance in an alleyway, and I get there, and there's a young lady and a baby. She's holding the baby, and she's explaining that her and her husband had gotten in a fight, and he'd beat her up, and that. And I know we're standing in the alleyway, and all of a sudden turn down the alley with these headlights coming at us, and they're coming fairly quick at us, and she's like, "That's my husband," she's kind of saying, and this is all happening within seconds,
right?
It's not, and that's my husband, and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing it. I had just enough time to push her and the baby out of the way, jump out of the way myself before getting run over.
Whoa! It's like a movie.
Yeah, it is. I pull my gun out now, and I'm justified in shooting him.
Shooting him or shooting at him? Well, I guess it's the same thing.
You're not. Yeah, you're shooting.
Shoot to kill.
Yeah, you're shooting at him.
Yeah.
You say, I'm justified in shooting him or shooting at him, and and like I said, and this all happens in a matter of seconds, and you have to take in, okay, you're justified in shooting him.
There's that checklist.
He's committed a felony.
Yeah.
He's tried to run you over. He's tried to run his wife over. He's tried to kill his baby. He's tried to kill all three of you. Who says he's not going to go kill somebody else? All of that stuff. Do you eliminate the threat?
Let me ask you
this.
this.
You're justified in eliminating the threat.
Right. In any form.
Yeah. So you're going through all that stuff. And as I was going through all that stuff and getting ready to shoot him, I see in the background it was a fast food restaurant with people standing there, and I stopped.
Oh,
and didn't,
because you're stray bullets, if there
know.
were any. Yeah.
I mean, those are those things you've got to go through.
Yeah.
Now, if I would have shot at him, was I been justified? Certainly would have been.
Interesting.
Now, but
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a good example of where you had to use your better judgment.
And my judgment was not to do it.
Right.
Where
did you still apprehend him?
Yeah, eventually we did. We had pursuit and all that stuff. Somebody else may have shot at him, shot him, and been justified in doing that.
Or maybe have missed.
Yeah, could have missed.
Yeah. This is very interesting. Again, I apologize for interrupting. I've got so many things going on in my head right now. Let me ask you this: as far as shoot to kill and shooting to disarm somebody, what's the difference, and how come we don't hear about that backstory?
Well, you're taught to, and you're not taught to shoot to kill. You're taught to shoot to eliminate the threat.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's how we're taught.
Okay.
That is the teaching, and it's been the teaching for years and stuff, is the public or the media or whatever says, oh, you're shoot to kill. Well, it's not. You've never been taught to shoot to kill. You're taught to shoot to eliminate the threat.
I'm glad I asked, because again, when you watch the media and you feed yourself certain things.
So a person that has a weapon, okay, and he pulls that weapon out and starts to point it at you, when is there a threat? Their threat is when he's starting to point that weapon at you, or when he's pulling that weapon, or even actually when he has that weapon. So do you want to wait? I'm going to put you on the spot, okay? You're standing there. You're a private citizen. You've got a weapon because you're allowed to have a weapon. And a person comes up to you and shows that they have a weapon in their waistband, puts their hand on it, and says, give me all your money, I'm going to kill you. Or better yet, because now you have a choice, give them my money, or do I defend it? Better yet, say, I'm going to kill your sister. So
Which sister? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm totally
brother,
kidding.
friend.
No,
whatever it is.
I see what
So,
you're doing because the money
so,
thing wasn't going to work. This one's going to work. I get what you're saying.
So it's
Yeah,
it's,
I would
tied
kill
to-
him.
So now, when is that threat? When he pulls the gun out and starts to point it at your sister?
Yeah. Wow. that's a
Or
good
is
question.
it when he says, "Hey, I'm going to kill your sister"?
Yeah.
And he shows you that he's got a gun. He has the potential. He has the reason. He's right there.
Yeah.
So are you going to eliminate the threat? Are you shooting him to kill him?
But-
Or are you shooting him to eliminate the threat?
But see, but you're asking me a couple of questions because not only what am I shooting him for, when am I going to do it? When am I taking action? Right? Is it when he exposes his gun? Is it when he then exclaims the threat? And truth be told, I don't know what I would do. I honestly don't know what I would do. I'm looking at my sister standing next to him.
Yeah. So we go back to the law.
Yeah.
And the law says that you have the right to defend yourself or another,
Which would be my sister.
which would be your sister. When when you feel your life or that other person's life is in danger. So it's an individual thing.
It really is.
One person may feel that their life's in danger when the person pulls out the gun and points it at them. Another person may feel their life's in danger as soon as they put their hand on the gun and shows it. So and the law is that you have the right to defend yourself when you feel your life or somebody else's life is in danger. Okay, and it's a reasonable person's perspective.
And it's a underline, emphasis, italic, bold, all that. And it's a reasonable person's perspective.
Yes.
It's all in that.
It's all in that. It's not in you as a police officer's perspective. It's in a reasonable person's perspective.
Okay, we talked about this before, so let's use the same opportunity because we got kind of at a splitting of the roads here. We talked about me getting a gun and if I should get a gun, and you asked me a couple of questions. So I'm going to ask you again. Do you think I should get a gun? Because times have changed since I saw you last.
I mean, I think that we all have a right to defend ourselves. All of us, whether you're a police officer or an individual citizen, whatever, you have a right to defend yourself. If you feel you need a gun to defend yourself, then I think yes, you should get a gun. The question is, if you get that gun, do you have the capability of using it to defend yourself? That's the
circles
question.
back to the last story.
That's what you have to answer.
But how do you're not going to know unless you're met in that moment, unless that moment presents itself.
Well, you need to make
There's
that.
not enough shooting range, practice targets.
Yes, there is, because you need to make that decision ahead of time. You need to make the decision that I'm going to take somebody's life. That because if you're thinking about it at that moment, you've lost.
Say that again.
If you're in a situation and you're thinking about it at that
Then
moment,
you're dead.
You've lost. You need, especially if you're going to have a gun.
Yeah.
You need to have made that decision ahead of time. You need to be clear with yourself.
Yeah.
That you can take another person. Now,
is that a psyche Val? How do you be clear with yourself?
Well, it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's and I've the thing is that are you willing to take another person's life to defend your life or somebody else's life?
The easy answer is obviously yes, right? But let's just get right down to it. I mean, if I had a gun under my seat, I had that issue with that dude a few weeks ago. It's like, okay, am I going to pull my gun out? The answer is no. That's not part of my personality. But I feel like that's that. Oh, I should have wrote down what you said. Gosh darn it. What did you say a moment ago? Come on, read my mind.
I don't know. What did you?
When you talking about using better judgment, right? At the end of,
you need to. It's a reasonable person's perspective.
Thank you, because I need to continue to circle back to that, and that's even for me. Am I a reasonable person in that moment? Probably not, because I'm filled with rage. Right? I'm not going to make a reasonable sound.
It's not. Are you filled with rage? It's what would a reasonable person do in a similar situation?
Reasonable. Oh, I'm stuck on that, dude. That's really got me stuck. All right, ready for this? It's going to get really uncomfortable, but we talked about this last time. Defunding the police. Talk about what that means to you, what the definition really is, why they shouldn't have used those words to describe it, and if you agree with it or not.
Well, and I think the analogy I will use is. You have a private business, okay, and you're selling a product.
I've got a bar. I'm selling beer and burgers.
Okay, and your product isn't working.
They don't like my burgers.
They don't like your burgers. Are you going to defund and put less into your product? Or are you going to invest more in your product to make it better?
I'm giving you an honest answer. I probably would rethink my product because it's not selling, or I would put more money into it to make it better. I'd figure out what it needs to make it better.
There you go.
Yeah.
So why are you wanting to take money away from the thing that you want to make better?
So then this is where I'm going to challenge you, because what does defund the police actually mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's to
because my understanding is it's like reallocating a budget
if you want to take what I understand it is taking money that we normally give to a police department to operate, taking that money away, which could be elimination of personnel and things like that, and reallocating that money to some other source or some other fund or some other agency
organization or group, right?
Yeah, or whatever it is. So, if you want, but the reason why you're taking money away from them is because they're not doing the job you want them to do. They're not operating in the way that you want them to operate, which gets back to the product not being what you want it to be. Shouldn't you be working to make that product better so that it can do the job you want it to do? Now, you may also say, okay, hey, you know what, my burger's not good, but you know what, I'm going to have a fish sandwich too to help your sales. Well, you know what, the police department, we need to make it better, give it more training so that the individuals understand our needs as a community. But on the other hand, you know what we're going to do? We're going to also create a mental health department that's going to, also assist or help or take away, from.
And what you're describing is my understanding of what defunding the police actually means. And I curse those words because it's silly. Defunding the police does not describe what the action really is what they're asking for, which is what you just described, which is, again, my understanding. It's adding a fish sandwich to the menu.
Yeah.
Right? We've talked about this before, and I want you to take a moment to talk about some of the things that happen with the police force where you guys are wasting your time, where somebody else could be doing that.
And
give us some examples.
So a police department's mission is to provide safe communities. That's our mission. Law and order, safe communities, and all that.
Protect and serve.
Protect and serve.
Yeah.
That is our mission. That's the fundamental mission of a police department. You look up in any criminal justice course or anything like that, and it talks about what the fundamental organizational missions are for law enforcement. Is to provide safety, provide safe communities, protect and order. To alleviate crime and all that. So what have you done to police departments? Because it's gets back to is who do we call? Let's call the police.
Yeah.
So now we're dealing with, is being a homeless person against the law?
No.
Then why did you make it a responsibility of the police department to enforce it?
Good example. Yeah, I get it.
Why?
So why isn't there a task force to deal with homeless people?
Well, go back to your politicians.
Right. Right.
But
would you be okay if some of the money that was designated to the police force was used for that?
I would be okay with designating more money, new money to that.
Gotcha. So
why take away from something that we are underfunded as it is?
I'm glad you said that. I don't know if people know that.
We are under.
I didn't know
the reason why you have cops that don't understand diversity issues is because there's not enough money for training and education. In police departments' budgets to be able to talk about a person, those things.
Yeah.
Either you make those as requirements before a person even becomes a police officer and going to school, or you have to educate them, as they're in the job. So, the other is when is mental health against the law?
It's not.
It's not. why do you make it a police department's responsibility?
Agreed. And those are the two biggest things that need to be addressed, right?
So, and the problem, and the reason why you make those more so the mental health issues is mental health persons are probably some of because of the mental health issues, the schizophrenia, the all of those type of things that are involved have the biggest threat. So do you send somebody that has the training to be able to deal with a threat like that? And not just the use of deadly force training, but all the other hand-to-hand combat, all the other things or do you send somebody that has no training? Or do you send somebody that has no training to deal with that, and then you got to also send a police officer to protect that person while they're trying to deal with it?
I get what you're saying.
Those should be the questions we're asking. Those should be the discussions that we're having.
I want to clarify something, and this is important. So what you basically said was that the majority of police forces, or at least the ones you're referring to, are already underfunded. So what you're proposing is a request for more money to be able to be put forth towards mental health, homelessness, and other.
And we have. We've done that in Cathedral City. When I was the mayor, we added funding to have 2 police officers work with the homeless, to work with social services and those things as a joint task force, as a joint thing.
And it worked.
It's working.
Got it. Yeah.
Has it solved the problem? No. Is it working? Yes. But is it necessarily a police department's responsibility? We've made it a police department's responsibility because they're out there.
Was that your brainchild? Was that your idea?
No, it was. It was just kind of. We've always dealt with it.
Yeah.
We just, as we went through a recession and we've gone through, things where there are more homeless and where are there more issues. We've had to add more resources to deal with those things.
Yeah.
So, we added more money. I know to the tune, I think at the time, and it may even be more than that now. Over $1 million just to deal with the homeless issue. And
you think people know this?
I hope they do.
I don't think they do.
Look at LAPD has had homeless officers for years. I should say they're dealing with the
task
same
force.
Yeah. We as a local community, Coachella Valley. Through CVAG, Coachella Valley Association of Governments, we put together a multifaceted program to deal with the homeless.
Yeah.
Housing, health care, social services, and the enforcement segment was obviously the police department. So they work all of that. A police officer comes upon a person that's a homeless person and they want to have housing. We have the ability to offer that now. And that's over, and that's been, several years that's been happening, and we're paying millions of dollars as a local area, Coachella Valley, for those services. Is it the finalization? Is it handling? Do we still have homeless? We certainly do.
Yeah.
Some of that is you've got people that don't want to live by your and my standard.
Yeah.
Whether that be,
I want to say civilly, right?
Yeah. Well, it's
that's kind of a lack of better words.
And I give you an example. Again, a long time ago, I was a sergeant working patrol here in Cathedral City when we had date groves and stuff like that in Cathedral City. And I remember one night driving down the street and seeing like a flickering of a light in an old abandoned trailer out in the middle of a date grove. I'm like, shit, man, is that thing on fire? That was kind of my first thought. So I stop, I get out, and I go walking through the date groves there. And there's a homeless person, transient. And I shouldn't actually call him a homeless person. A transient is our standards of a person living in this trailer. He I spent time talking to him. I'd actually, over time, had seen him a couple of times because he was living out in this trailer, and he had a doctorate degree in physics, and just decided to be,
Be a hobo.
be off the off the grid,
Yeah.
type thing. And that was that was that was the standard he was living by.
A genius, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, so we have some people that's what they want to live by.
Yeah.
We look at them and say, okay, is that a standard we want to live by? A decision I make, no.
Yeah.
A decision they make, and sometimes they live by those standards because of mental health issues, because of drugs, because of alcohol, because of other things that
Usually mental health.
usually mental
Right.
health. I would say the majority is mental health and drug abuse. Those that, I should say, the majority of those that don't want help. And I say help. They don't want the social services.
Yeah.
They don't want the housing. They don't
Yeah.
want those things, because when you come to those standards, you have to live by certain rules. We all live by those rules.
gotta follow the rules, yeah.
You got to follow the rules. They don't want to follow those rules. So they choose not to accept the help.
Yeah.
Which means that we now have to deal with them.
And it's hard to see, especially driving down through downtown Palm Springs in 119-degree weather, when you're seeing these people kind of fight for survival. But it's interesting because a lot of people don't want the help, and I've witnessed that too many times.
But you
firsthand.
said it's 119 degrees and it's fight for survival. There's cooling stations, there's housing, there's things and I don't want to get into the reasons for, but they're making a choice still to be on that curb.
It's true.
In 119 degree
True.
weather.
There's a woman over at Sunny Dunes by KFC, and I see her often. And I'm always like, "Hey, you want some water?" And she's very pleasant, and she's like, "Nope." And she's very direct and a lot of pride. "No, I don't want a thing from you." She smiles, but she's sitting there living out of a basket. I'm like, "All right, everybody makes choices." Let's play a game. You ready?
Okay.
It's called a yay or nay. All right. I'm just going to start throwing some things out at you. You can say yay or nay. All right. You ready for this?
I think so.
Julie Henry. Yay or nay?
Yay.
Yay. Kim Kardashian.
Nay.
She's laughing over there. Dr. Fauci.
Yay.
Yay. All right. COVID-19.
No way.
Conspiracy theories.
No.
Stephen King.
A great author.
Portland, Oregon right now. That's really not a yay or a nay. That's just that's an issue.
It's Portland, Oregon right now.
Crazy stuff.
Is a what's the term I want to use? Chaos.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to it gets back to those individual agendas. And everybody is looking out for their own individual agenda. The politicians, they don't want to do certain things because they don't want to upset these people, or there's nobody willing to stand for what's right.
I mean, it's mayhem. It seems like the point, right? The
It's-
cause
it
is
has
now
got-
gone.
It has
right?
gotten away from the reason why people protest in the first place.
The cause, right? We've lost the
You know,
cause.
it's would you
Protest, yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay, would I what?
I mean, and see, that's the thing is we have a First Amendment right to freedom of speech. I used to tell people all the time when they say, "Oh, well, you don't, this and that," and I said, my whole life, my whole adult life, I was a police officer when I was 21 years old.
No, you're a kid.
I was a kid. I mean, I didn't know a shit, but I was a police officer at 21 years old. My whole adult life, I have defended other people's rights. That's my job. Whether I agree with them or not, that was my job was to defend their rights.
That's
so
deep.
whether you say something I don't like, you call me a name, whatever, if I take you into custody for something that you've done wrong, I still have to defend your rights. I mean, what do we want done with the mass murderer?
We want justice.
Do you want justice or you want the guy gone? What's justice?
That's another conversation. I don't necessarily believe in the death penalty. I think.
No, I'm just saying but
I want him gone off the streets and rotting under the jail.
okay.
I want him to have 300 life sentences, so he could sit and think about all the shit he did by himself and rot.
Okay.
But I don't necessarily oppose a death penalty. It's just not. If I was a judge, that's not something I would give to. I believe in get stuck in your head.
I'm just saying it's so it's you have people that that want him dead, but it's our job to defend him because he has rights, like you just said,
And due process.
Yeah. So that's where I would say the majority of police officers come from.
And there's a lot of mentality that we as civilians don't know. We don't understand that stuff. I mean, the fact that you said that to defend my rights, I wouldn't have never guessed that. Maybe getting pulled over and thinking that in that moment, I don't think you're there to defend my rights. Maybe if I had known that or kept that in my head.
Actually, I am there. I'm defending your right to live. Because by you speeding,
maybe I wasn't speeding
or smoking,
smoking,
drinking.
Okay, enough. Cut. You're funny. I don't want to wrap this up just yet, but I got a couple of things to shoot at you before we get to some more stuff. But I asked you yay or nay to protest, and you said yay. I don't think that a lot of people would have expected that response from you or somebody working in the police force, but I'm glad that you attached to the fact that it is our right as an American citizen to get out and speak.
Is it your right to vandalize? Is it your right to loot? Is it your right to
I don't agree with
hurt
that.
other people? No. But it is your right to have freedom of speech. And if that freedom of speech means to protest, then you have that right.
Why are we seeing excessive force? Is it just, and I know that's a loaded question, and I don't want to cherry pick situations, but it seems, is it cops being frustrated? Is it they're being trained to use excessive force?
Well, I guess
It's a tough question.
Is you're going to have to explain what,
An isolated incident.
well, what excessive force is.
Well, like you see a lot of people who are protesting and they're standing and they're being they're just standing and they're being sprayed with like pepper or tear gas or
Because
something.
you got to lead up to that.
Right.
This protest has now gone from a legitimate right to a illegal assembly. And now you're being told this is no longer a legal assembly. This is now a legal assembly. You must disperse.
Interesting.
And so how do we
Get people
disperse people?
Yeah.
So you're telling me that you don't want me to push somebody. You're telling me that you don't want me to use my baton. You're telling me that you don't want me to do any of those other things. So how do I get you to disperse?
What are you left with? Yeah.
What am I left with?
All right.
I'm left with using tear gas. And you say tear gas, it's pepper spray,
Okay.
non-lethal. It's the same thing you'd use on a dog or whatever it is. It's pepper spray. So the next question is when does this go from even in freedom of speech, you have limitations and you have a process that we have to follow.
Yeah.
You've got to go through you've got and the Constitution even sets that up. You've got a process you've got to follow. So when you've overstepped those boundaries is when we have had to we law enforcement
Have to use excessive force.
No, we're not using excessive. We have to use ways to disperse that illegal or unlawful assembly.
Well, then what is excessive force? Because maybe I'm using the wrong vernacular.
So, excessive force.
Or is it the George Floyd thing? Was that excessive force?
You know what? People say it was. It does not look right. It does not look good. We don't know what was going through his mind. We don't know what all, the thing in the media, you get clips of stuff. Him, with his kneeling on this guy for 8 minutes on his throat. Was that legitimate? Was it not? Doesn't look right. Doesn't look good. We don't know what's going on. There's several things that come into play, of why you would hold somebody down. I'm not saying that was legitimate. I'm not saying that that's right. I'm just saying that, that you've got excited delirium. You've got positional asphyxiation. You've got all these different things that, as a police officer, you should know about on dealing with people that are in a heightened, state of mind.
Excited delirium is when you hear those stories about like the naked guy who's on PCP, like lifting cars and shit,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
You've got that, but they don't have to be on PCP.
And they don't have to be naked either. But
They don't have to be naked. It's just the adrenaline in your body.
just hope they are.
Yeah. It's just the adrenaline in your body is going to cause different things, and
Yeah.
and you get too much of that adrenaline pumping, and what it has the potential of doing is exploding the heart, or
Or also not making you think right.
it doesn't make you think right.
I don't want to do this to you. I already know the answer. But if you were that dude, how would you have handled that situation?
Yeah, how would I have handled it? I mean, from what you see, he was not at that point for those 8. They say those 8 minutes, and like I said, we're only getting bits and pieces and stuff for those 8 minutes. So what you are seeing is that, should he have been holding him down at that point? Probably not. And I say that probably not because I don't know what had occurred to the point to where, what is he waiting for? Did they just get in a fight? Did they just struggle? Now you do see some other clips of them trying to put him in the back of a police car, and he's resisting that. One of the things, when you meet resistance, one of the best ways is to eliminate that resistance is to, lay a person down on the ground. Control their extremities, handcuffs, all those type of things, so that again, you have the right to defend yourself. Whether you're a police officer or an individual or whatever, if somebody is resisting, we have the right to use whatever we have. And that gets back to your excessive force. We have the right to use whatever force to overcome that resistance. Once the resistance has stopped, if you are still using some type of force, then that probably is excessive force.
Is that what you? Is it? Because I
That's
think
what that's the law.
that's what people are saying that they saw. Right. It seemed like he was already kind of apprehended.
He appeared to be apprehended. Or was he waiting to be able to get another 2 people there or something like that to be able to put him in the back car? I don't know. And I'm not making excuses for the guy, and I don't want to make excuses for the guy.
And I don't want you to talk about things you're not comfortable with or make.
The appearance does not look good.
Right. Well, no, almost 10 minutes.
It doesn't look good. Why? Could they have set him up?
I don't understand how somebody could try to justify what was happening from what they saw from the video, and that's why I asked you, because if anybody could, it would be you.
And that does not. It does not look good.
Right.
Should he be leaning on the guy with no resistance for 8 minutes? No.
Right.
My opinion.
And that's why I asked, because I know you, and I know that if you handled that, it would have went down completely differently.
He shouldn't. Once the resistance stopped, there's no reason to have any other force. Now, should they have set him up or let him just say, hey, okay, you know what? You're going to lay here until we get a paddy wagon.
Yeah.
So don't, if you resist, then we're going to put a knee back on your back.
Right.
Or we're going to hog tie you, or we're going to do whatever.
And that's what you would have done.
We probably would have.
Right.
Yeah. For him to, do you need to also, defend against an escape and stuff? You certainly do.
Yeah. And that's why I love having you here, is because this is the side of the stories, not just this one, but in general, that we don't know what we don't know. And I know that I've got cops that I've known and loved for years. My mother dated a cop growing up. I've got good friends who are police, and there's a lot of good people out there with beautiful intentions, and we need to hear this voice, right? Don't you agree over there, the audience members back there? Do you have? Now this is again because you're following me as I'm taking all kind of fucking turns, right? Pardon my French. Do you have hope, right, with everything that we're going through this crazy times?
The pendulum always swings. Societal pendulum swings, and we are at a point where it's pretty liberal right now.
Okay.
It's pretty out there, but will it adjust itself? It will, and it's it'll, like I said, it'll adjust itself somewhere as it we've gone from to from one area to where we are more conservative to areas where we're more liberal.
Yeah.
And like I said, that pendulum will swing.
So
And
have
it
you
will-
seen
and
this
it will-
before in your life?
We went through the riots in the 60s.
Uh-huh.
We went through the
Riots in the
college
90s.
demonstrations in the 70s. Vietnam. We went through. We've had these things. We've had all of those things.
What needs to change to not have these things happen?
People quit having their own personal agendas and look out for what's the betterment of the good of all.
Yeah. Be
and
selfless. Take care of other people.
But I can see, not that I agree with, but I can see why somebody would push her personal agenda. If somebody is oppressed, and they're oppressed and they're oppressed and they're oppressed, and all of a sudden they have an opportunity, a window opens, and they have an opportunity to change that oppression. Do they take it? Sure, they take it. Now, do they sometimes, because they want to gain so much more, take it and overstep it? Yeah. So
We're seeing a lot of that today.
we are seeing a lot of that
Yeah, I
today.
get that.
We've gone from what the reasons for the protest to what legitimate reason is there to loot somebody's business in a protest? What legitimate reason is there to burn down a building or destroy a police car or a person driving down the street, car or person, in a protest? There's no legitimate reason. It's and I'm trying to again myself put my wrap around what this is, but again, it's you have a person or persons that are oppressed for whatever reason, see an opportunity, take it too far. And we've seen it over, and we saw it in the Watts riots. Why did Reginald Denny, there you go,
Like the restaurant.
why did he get pulled out of his truck and beat?
Yeah.
Did that help their cause?
What was the cause?
Well, I think it was oppression.
Yeah.
I think there was oppression. I think that was, if you look at it, and if you talk to persons, of color at that time, that looked to make change, I think that there was some oppression, and so they wanted to make change. But you have a group of individuals that took it too far, and did that help their cause or did that hurt their cause?
Well, definitely hurt their cause. There's no doubt about that. Let's
So
move. Let me.
what's happening today in Portland?
Well, let me jump to today. As far as rioting and demonstrators and protesters, are you saying that there's more diverse? Because when we look at the 90s and look at probably maybe some of the footage, you're seeing a lot of black folks. Now you're seeing a lot of people of all different races rioting and looting and protesting. What do you think about that?
I think it's.
I mean, am I crazy or is it?
Well, no, I think you're right. I think that there's a couple of reasons for it. One is we have a generation that, for whatever reasons, hasn't been told no.
Well, you've got kids in that generation.
I certainly do.
Have you told your kids no?
I've tried to.
Go on.
If you ask them, yes. That'd be interesting to have one of them say, "Come on here." And
I'd
talk.
love that, actually.
Yeah, I don't think you'd get it, but yeah. I mean, yeah. And I've always tried to tell them is that there is always I just lost the word I wanted. There's always I'm drawing a blank.
Don't look at her.
I know.
She's not in your head.
I know she's not. It's well, yes, she is. She's in my head more. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Talking about millennials and saying no and
but
entitlement.
there's entitlement. There's I want to say outcome, but that's not the word I want. It's repercussions. There's always a repercussion. To
that was the
something that you
word?
do. There you go.
Holy crap!
Perfect. There's a repercussion to everything you do.
Yeah.
And so, we've raised a generation of kids that don't understand those repercussions. And I'm not saying that is the only reason. I think this COVID-19 is an issue.
Yeah.
Because you have people that have been, they've been taken from work. They've been sequestered.
Yeah.
Cooped up. And they have time and freedoms on their hands.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, what do we want to do today? Well, let's go down to whatever because this is what's happening.
A friend of
There's
mine's son did that.
circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the perfect storm of bad happening.
You get too much free time on your hand.
So,
all right. So before we wrap it up, I want you to ask me a question. You have any questions for me? Probably not, but figure something out.
I didn't come prepared to ask questions. I guess
That's all right.
So yeah, okay. You've had a experience recently with a person that has been, we'll term racist in the comments that he's made. What would you see or want done?
Talk about a loaded question. Well, a bit of backstory. Some of the loyal listeners may have learned this, but yeah, I was called a fucking nigger by a road rager a few weeks ago. What would I want done? Here, it's a really easy answer, and I'm sure I'll get some backlash from this, but when I posted it on Facebook, I basically said, if you see this guy, have a sit down with him. So kind of similar to what we're doing with this podcast is I would just hope that like somebody could have a sit down with him and maybe change his mind a little bit and say, hey, that was stupid. B, next, you do that to the wrong person, you might not survive it. And C, kind of get in his head and try to create some change from that situation instead of just responding the way a lot of people do, which is out of anger, because that doesn't solve anything.
No.
If I respond with anger, then we're both angry, and then there we go. At least I can try to provoke some sort of change by encouraging people to have dialogue with him. So that's my answer. That's what I would have want done. As far as any kind of, there is nothing you can do legally, right? No, I learned that. And no, I would just want I would want somebody to sit down with him. I'd want his mom. There's my final answer. I would want his mom to have seen that post, flipped out, called her son and said, get home now, we have to have a talk. Because you need to live like your mom's always watching. We all fuck up, but how was that for an answer? Yeah. I've had a lot of coffee today.
But your answer is right on. Because that's what we should be doing right now. You get back to these demonstrations and all that is you've got anger, which, and anger
begets
and
anger.
nobody is talking.
Yeah. There's nothing productive is coming from any of it.
So, we need to sit down, put the agendas away and say, okay, how can we move forward and better society?
So you liked my answer. That was the right answer.
I do. I think, yeah.
Yeah.
It's how do we, because you don't know where that person's coming from. You don't know why he said what he said.
Right. And there could be infinite reasons as to why.
My question to him would be why? Why'd you say that?
Well, I pissed him off.
Yeah, but why did you use those terms?
Yeah. Do you know what happened? We were road raging, right? And I did not. It's something new that I've done because I've been meditating and doing all this great shit. So he was road raging on me, right? Trying to cut me off, and I wouldn't let him. So eventually, I turned right, and he had his window rolled down for me to roll down and fuck you and all that. And I didn't even look at him. I just turned right. That pissed him off even more. So that's when he pulled up next to me, right? And then I was like, okay, I've got two options. I can hop out of my car, or I can stay seated and roll the window down. So I rolled the window down. I said, hey, it's all love, brother. It's all love. And that made him even more mad. The fact that I was like, hey.
So you caused it by jacking him up.
Correct. It's true. No, because you're making a joke, but it's true. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I knew I was pissing him off by just being like, "It's all love, brother. It's all love." And I was looking at his car kind of funky because you know what I drive, and I was like, "Yo, like, what's good? Like, I'm looking like king of the road," and it's all love, and that set his hair on fire. So I could have handled that differently, and that's when he said "fucking nigger," and then he pulled away. So then I got and took a picture of his car, all that. But the person I was with jumped out of the car and ran towards him, and I had to get out of my car and said, "Hey, get your ass back in the car." And he almost got emotional. He was my white friend, he was so freaked out by what he had witnessed. He was shaking. And I was like, A, calm down. B, welcome to the life of a man of color. And C, you can't respond that way, dude. You can't let that fool take your fucking energy.
But we do.
Fuck
people
that.
I'm just saying, but people do.
You're right, they do.
You know,
they do.
And that's where
every
we're
day.
at. That's where we're at.
But you're tested every day. And
Absolutely.
It's important to make
are.
sure in that moment that you take a deep breath and think about the right thing to do. Absolutely. I'm not giving some stranger my energy. You know, I'm not, dude, I work in, you know what I do for work. I'm not letting some stranger jeopardize everything I've worked for. I could get out of that car, hit him the wrong way. He could bust his head on the curb and die. You know, there's infinite things. It's not worth it to me. If you want to call me a fucking nigger, that's your issue. Okay? Those are your anger, your words, your stuff that you have to deal with.
Yep.
Oh, Dad. It's so just kidding. I am so glad that you came back. Do you think this was better than the first one? Or just different?
It was. I mean, we touched on a lot of the same issues and things, and I think that's good. It was good.
I really appreciate you letting me ask you some interesting and kind of odd and hard questions to answer. And I think that this, again, is a perspective that people need to hear. And I really wanted it to come from you because you're just such a solid dude. Before we say goodbye, we always like to ask guests if they have any solutions that they can offer listeners. We did this last time. Is there anything you can think of that people could maybe do?
I think that that what people need to do is understand that we all have different upbringings. We all come from different perspectives. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. They're different. Mm-hmm. And that, you have to have dialogue to understand what those are so that you can come up with ways to make change. We're always changing. Society's changing. Like I say, that pendulum's going back and forth and swinging and stuff. The way we policed in the 70s is not the way we police in 2020. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be. But you have to have dialogue to be able to make those changes. You have to understand where that other person is coming from and where they have come. A black person, living in the South in the 60s has a complete different perspective on things than myself coming from Los Alamitos, Orange County, mm-hmm. in the 60s. Yeah. My life was completely different than somebody else's. Mm-hmm. And not that either one is right or wrong, mm-hmm. they're different. And
incredibly different.
Yeah. Do we both have something to offer? We certainly do.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of things in common too.
And probably have a lot of things in common. Find out and focus on those commonalities, and then look at where you can use those commonalities to make change.
I love it.
That's what we need to do.
Create dialogue, find those commonalities, and then use those commonalities to create change. I love that. That's what we're looking for here. There it is, guys. I'm making a note for that. Again, create dialogue. Talk to somebody who's different from you. Find some commonalities, which is not hard because I like pizza. Do you like pizza?
Yeah.
Boom.
But I don't like the same pizza you like.
How do you know?
I'm just making that assumption.
What kind of pizza do you like?
Pepperoni.
All right. Well, I'm more of a combination guy. You were right. You got lucky. You got lucky. I love this. And create change. Well, that's what we do here. Do your part. Stan Henry did his part by being here today. Again, thanks for being here.
Certainly.
All right, guys. We love you. Take care of yourselves and each other. That's a wrap. We will see you soon.